Hey, greetings everyone. Today's going to take a look at this new Harbor Freight 12-inch double bevel sliding compound miter saw. It's a relatively new product on their website. I already have a 12-inch miter saw that I bought probably 10 or 15 years ago at DeWalt. It's been pretty faithful to me, but it doesn't do the double bevel. It's also not a sliding saw, so you can't cut the wider stock. In any regards, I have two workshops, and as it currently is, I have to move the DeWalt around from shop to shop. And it's a little bit inconvenient at times. It's kind of heavy, so I thought I'd just pick up an inexpensive saw for my outdoor workshop just to have something handy when I need to do some quick cuts. I picked up this saw. It was on sale. I think picked it up for $130, so at that price it's kind of hard to go wrong. Anyway, I know there's been a lot of interest in this saw, and I thought I'd give you a first-hand look at it. So let's get started. All right, this is the saw here, and as you can see from the sawdust, I've already used it. We have it sitting on a little homemade table. This is an old coffee table that's going to get thrown away and got repurposed. And I also had the saw bolted down. There are 4 holes in the base, and I just drilled some holes down to the table and put some bolts and nuts on there to hold it in place. Let's go in and I'll give you a closer look at the saw. Probably the first thing to note is that, of course, it is a sliding saw. These are the rails it uses to slide back and forth on. I saw some complaints on the reviews. People had problems where it was gritty and dirty. It wasn't the case here. This one came pretty clean out of the box. There's a little locking mechanism right here. It's just basically a bolt machine screw that screws in and tightens against it so it can't slide if you're just doing some simple chop cuts. All you have to do is turn it counterclockwise with any bolt to loosen it up. And then you've got free sliding movement. This is the dust bag. And if you read the reviews on their website, this is one of the things you get the biggest complaint about. As you can see, with the dust bag on, there's still quite a bit of dust all over the table. Frankly, I've never really seen a dust collection system that's been all that effective, so I don't know. You may just want to leave that off of there. Another nice little feature of the saw is it has these side extensions here. So if you're working on some long stock, and a lot of times you'll have a case where it extends over the end of the table and it'll flip up when you're trying to cut it. So these are available on both sides. There's just basically a simple lock screw here that locks it in place. And that's the maximum extension. And it also has 2 screws here, nuts that allow this little bar here to raise up and down so you can bring it level. And there's also one of these on the other side. Here you can see some of the bolts I've run down to the table to fasten it down. These are just 3/8-inch hardware. Take a look at the guard. The guard on these is extremely important because these can be widowmakers for sure. So you want to make sure you have a good guard that's properly attached, properly adjusted, so you don't take any fingers off. I did have a problem when I first got this. When I would lower the saw and then raise it back up, the guard would stick in a position like this. So you bring your saw up, and the guard would flop back down. What I discovered here is there's a little lock nut that goes on here. And this really has to be adjusted so it's just right. It was too loose, and essentially what happened was this would come up and it would bind, and so it wouldn't come down. I just took a wrench or a socket and put on here and tightened it up till it was proper. If you tighten it up too much, this will be too tight and won't slide at all, so you just have to play around a little bit to get it just right. And that would probably be one of the first things I would do once I got this saw out of the box. There's a feature here that's kind of nice. It's basically a depth gauge. There's 2 screws, and the one in the back, it may not cost you not to adjust it because it's been adjusted at the factory. Basically, that'll set your overall depth of the saw blade, how far it comes down. You don't want to go down too far because it's going to hit on the back of this little inset. You don't want that to happen. But the front one adjusts how deep your cut goes. So you can do something like this, basically a dado type effect, or maybe you want to notch a piece of wood out, do a sort of tongue and groove connection, if you will. What you basically do is move this little guy here over, and that'll implement the stop for the screw. And you can just take and adjust this screw the depth you want it to be. There's also a locking spin nut on here, so it stays in place for you. And I use this saw to make this cut here. There's only one thing. The problem is when the saw is raised, you're not going to cut all the way through your wood that's back up against the fence. So there's actually a little higher spot here. So what you might want to do is maybe put a piece of inch wood here to space it so it goes out a little bit further. Here's another nice handy little accessory on the saw. It's a lockdown clamp for your stock. So if you're cutting something, especially the saw's on a bevel, you've got those nasty looking blades coming towards your fingers, this will let you get your fingers out of the way. So for example, put this where we want it. Tighten the back up, and then you can adjust this clamp here. And this will do a pretty good job of keeping this securely in place when you do your cut. You can do a hands-free cut. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a test cut just so you can see what it's like as this thing cuts through this piece of wood. This is basically a rough cut piece of pine. It's milled by some local Amish people here. It's 2 inches thick. One thing about the saw, you see a lot of complaints on the reviews on the website. It does have a laser guide on it. However, there's no way to activate it unless the blade is actually spinning. So that's a bit of a pain because you really don't want the blade spinning when you're trying to adjust your piece of wood for precision. There's no way to get that laser to come on otherwise. You can also see how long it took for the blade to stop spinning. It doesn't seem to be a very powerful brake, if any brake at all. I've seen some complaints in the review section as well. Anyway, this saw is pretty noisy, as you probably notice. It's not a direct drive motor, it's a belt drive, which it has to be because of the sliding aspect of it. But here we go. Let's just cut through this piece of wood to give you an idea. I'm going to do hands-free. This is clamped down. Now you can see we weren't able to get through the whole piece of wood without sliding it, and I've got it locked in place. So we're going to have to unlock it so it can slide, cut the rest of the way through that. But again, you can see how long it takes for that blade to spin down and stop. The other thing I want to show you here is the accuracy of this laser guide. First thing I'm going to do is use this speed square to describe a true square line. One of the complaints I have about this saw is the accuracy of the laser. It's not really very good, and I'm not able to adjust it. I'll show you a close-up later. It's basically just a little piece of plastic that mounts back here in the saw. And all you can do is essentially move it around a little bit. And I've never really been able to get it quite accurate. I'll show you what I mean here. First I'll adjust this the way I would normally adjust it without a laser guide. Okay, so as it is right now, the teeth point alternating one direction to the other direction. You want to find the tooth that points this direction. Right now I'm going to cut on the right side of this line. So watch where the laser falls as we turn the saw on. I don't want to put my fingers down where the saw is running, but basically it's right on back here. But as we come forward on the board, it skews off to the right a little bit. And try as I may, I've never been able to get this thing really accurate. But then again, I've never in my life used these laser guides. I just don't trust them. Here's just as easy to bring the saw blade down and line up where you want it to be. So something to think about if you're big on laser guides. I've seen people sell add-on laser guides that basically go onto the arbor, fit right here, and it's usually $20 to $30 on Amazon. And it seems like half the reviews are for them and half the reviews are against them. So once again, if you rely on a laser guide, you might want to look at that as an option. Maybe you get a saw that's right on. Maybe you don't care like me. give you a close-up of this actual laser. You can see it. It's right here. This is, you can probably see the clear lens. That's where the light emits from. And one thing I hadn't noticed before is that as we saw that dust collects on there, it's going to block your laser, obstruct your laser. But down here, really all that holds this on, there's a screw here and a screw here. And then you can slide it one side or the other. There's also a screw up here, which I've turned, and it doesn't seem to do anything. I would think it would adjust that skew, but it doesn't work for me. If anyone else has luck with it or has some ideas, please post it in the comments section. Probably the biggest complaint I have about this saw is you adjust the angle for your miter. As with most of these saws, you have a locking mechanism right here, which will lock your angle in place. And you have a little tab you pull up to move it. There's a little gauge over here, which goes on a scale, and this is adjustable. So it's just a piece of metal with a single screw that holds it into the plate here. And the problem is, I'm not pulling this tab up right now, and it's loose, and I'm just moving it back and forth. You can see how much slop there is in there in that stop. Probably, I don't know, plus or minus 2 degrees. This is just essentially a piece of plastic which goes up into these little slots here, and since it's a piece of plastic, but it's not very rigid, it really does not provide you a good stop. The only way to get a good reliable angle on this is you really need to take the power cord off, bring this guy down, and use your square to get the angle right. Otherwise, you're going to probably be off. So that's really been my biggest complaint about this saw. It's just really sloppy on this stop guide. I'll go ahead and set this to 45 degrees just to give you an idea how well that lines up. So we'll take and loosen this up. It's also got stops for 15, 22.5, if you're doing octagons, 30 degrees, and then of course your 45. Well, once again, look at all that slop in there. You can see this thing probably down here is how much movement there is in it. If they just made this a nice piece of aluminum and made it nice and rigid, we wouldn't have these problems. I don't have this problem with my DeWalt. You know, once it locks into that stop, it's pretty good. So anyway, if you want to have a proper angle on here, you're going to have to use a square. I forgot this. So basically, just don't trust the stops. Put an angle on there and make sure it's right before you do any cutting. Just a few words on the fence. This top half of the fence on both sides will adjust out. And this clamp will also move to the side if you need it. Okay. Just take a quick look at the right side of the saw. This is the housing for your belt, which attaches to your motor back here. Also, this guy here will allow your saw to be locked down in position. Just take and pull it out, rotate it, and voila. Use it if you're going to be carrying it around using the handle up top. Take a look at the handle. There is a safety interlock on the power switch, so you have to press these in with your thumb, or if you're a lefty, works from either side, before you can engage the trigger. Here on the motor, you see we have access for the motor brushes, and they do provide you with an extra set of those. I found that most of the electric power tools at Harbor Freight sell, they do provide you with extra brushes So that is a nice benefit. Take another look at the saw from the back side. If you're going to bevel your saw to the left or right, there is a little angle gauge here. Once again, this pointer just has a screw over here which you can use to adjust it. There's also 2 screws here that you can set to make sure that it defaults into perfectly square with the table. And you have this knob back here which you would use to adjust the angle. If you're going to bring it this way, this little guy here needs to be slid forward. And I'll let you rotate it this way as well. Once again, it does have stops for your 45, so you can adjust those. Or you may just want to put a square on it. And tighten that down. Make sure it's secure. Go ahead and do a bevel cut for you, just to show you how it works. Just to give you a closer look at this saw blade that comes with it. As you can see, it's a 60 tooth, carbide tipped. It seems to do all right. Really, the only way I to compare this, I have a branded DeWalt blade, and I'd have to put that on here and see if it really does make a difference in cutting. I think if you look for a brand new blade from like DeWalt or Bosch, you're probably looking at $30 to $60 and up from there. So $60, that's almost half the price I paid for the saw. Just note on the power cord, as you can see, the power cord is relatively short with this. Well, I haven't measured it exactly, but I'd have to say maybe about 6 feet long. So unless you're right up against a receptacle, you're probably going to have to use an extension cord with it, which is no big deal. And the cord itself seems to be decent material. It's 14 gauge wire. Let me demonstrate one last thing for you. Let's go ahead and cut through this piece of 2-inch solid oak here using our compound miter cut. We've got the saw set at an angle of 45 degrees and a bevel of 45 degrees. It's locked in place with this clamp pretty tightly. It's up against the fence. I did note previously that when you've got this set in this mode, you have to take this right sliding fence completely off. Otherwise, the motor housing catches as you try to slide the saw forward. So let's see how it handles this heavy oak. I'd say it went through there pretty well. It's a nice clean cut. Okay, there you have it. There's an overview of the 12-inch double bevel sliding compound miter saw from Harbor Freight. I see these are typically selling for about $170 on their website. I picked it up on sale for $130, including with tax on top of that. Just to give you a review of the summary I had, basically I'm relatively happy with it with 2 minor exceptions. The first being that I think the laser guide is pretty much useless. It's really not very adjustable, and it's hard to get it right on. And I feel a lot more comfortable with just manually lining the blade up as I always have. And the other problem I really wasn't too happy was the stops. The preset angles 0, 15, 22, 0.5, 45, whatever. There's just too much slop in there. You really can't rely on it. Probably plus or minus 2 degrees. If you want to be accurate, you really need to put a square on there and line it up before you tighten it up. Other than that, I think for $130, it's hard to go wrong, especially if it's just a second saw for you, or a backup saw perhaps, or light use. Seems plenty powerful. The blade seems more than adequate. And once again, to go out and buy a DeWalt or Bosch blade, you're probably talking $30 to $60, if not more, which is almost half the price that I paid for the saw alone. It's got aluminum construction. It's pretty solid. Has these extension arms. If you're done with a long piece of work, I had this particular unit bolted down to this work table because if you're sliding, it does tend to rock since the base really isn't that wide. So for safety, I'd recommend you do bolt it down before using it. The dust bag is pretty much useless, as just about all the reviewers note on the website. As you can see from a little bit of work we've done here, there's a lot of dust all over the place. Didn't have any problem cutting through pine, not much of a problem cutting through this solid oak. The slide mechanism is pretty good. There is a lockdown, so you can lock the saw down for safety and for carrying. You can also lock the saw so it doesn't slide if you're just going to do simple chops. And beyond that, I definitely give it a thumbs up. All right. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Hope this helps you make your purchasing decision. Have a good day. Cheers to all. Hey, greetings everyone. Today's going to take a look at this new Harbor Freight 12-inch double bevel sliding compound miter saw. It's a relatively new product on their website. I already have a 12-inch miter saw that I bought probably 10, 15 years ago at DeWalt. It's been pretty faithful to me, but it doesn't do the double bevel. And it's also not a sliding saw, so you can't cut the wider stock. In any regards, I have two workshops, and as it currently is, I have to move the DeWalt around from shop to shop, and it's a little bit inconvenient at times. It's kind of heavy, so I thought I'd just pick up an inexpensive saw from my outdoor workshop just to have something handy when I need to do some quick cuts. I picked up this saw. It was on sale. I think picked it up for $130, so at that price, it's kind of hard to go wrong. Anyway, I know there's been a lot of interest in this saw, and I thought I'd give you a first-hand look at it. So let's get started. All right, this is the saw here, and as you can see from the sawdust, I've already used it. We have it sitting on a little homemade table. This is an old coffee table that's going to get thrown away and got repurposed. And I also had the saw bolted down. There are 4 holes in the base, and I just drilled some holes down to the table and put some bolts and nuts on there to hold it in place. Let's go in and I'll give you a closer look at the saw. Probably the first thing to note is that, of course, it is a sliding saw. These are the rails it uses to slide back and forth on. I saw some complaints on the reviews. People had problems where it was gritty and dirty. It wasn't the case here. This one came pretty clean out of the box. There's a little locking mechanism right here. It's just basically a bolt machine screw that screws in and tightens against it so it can't slide if you're just doing some simple chop cuts. All you have to do is turn it counterclockwise with any bolt to loosen it up.